You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hey, this is John Preston, Marine Combat Veteran and Pacific Records recording artist. Just reaching out to have you check out our new album, Battle Cry, Songs of America's Heroes, an album featuring phenomenal other combat veteran artists like Scott Brown of the Scooter Brown Band, Ryan Weaver, Rowdy Johnson, just an incredible mix of people. This is all veterans telling our stories and our lives, and we're giving 100% of our proceeds to the Valkyrie Initiative to help veterans and first responders integrate back into society. I myself have battled with post-traumatic stress for many years and lost my own brother, a Marine Corps veteran, to suicide. I ask that you step with us and make this happen. We are in pre-order right now and release on March 17th. Go to iTunes, go to Amazon, buy. We plan on making the charts and making it at a very high level, and your support right now makes a difference. This is the release of my new song, Superman Falls, which is actually about the loss of my own brother, which happened last year, and I would love for everyone to check it out, to listen, and hopefully it'll make a difference in many lives.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Here's George Foreman with InventHelp.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
To get your free inventor's information, call 1-800-353-6490. That's 1-800-353-6490. Again, 1-800-353-6490.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
How do you know when political correctness has gotten out of control? How about when the crowd that touts political correctness attacks each other? I have a hilarious story for you on that. Also, President Trump's supporters that are claiming he is the next Reagan have to jump over a couple obstacles to try and explain why the president is attacking the most conservative members of Congress over the health care bill while saying he is going to instead work with the Democrats. In other news, we also have a 5-year-old is the latest to fall victim to the absolutely asinine zero tolerance policy at her school when she was suspected and suspended for a Class 2 firearm look-alike, or what the rest of us would call a stick. But first, I have some amazing, terrifying, and absolutely ridiculous stories in regards to the entertainment world. Some movie trailers you have to see, and one, well, let's just say it's going to be a sequel to a movie that wrongly predicted things the first go-round. We begin there on the Generation Y Conservative podcast. Welcome to the Generation Y Conservative Podcast, everyone. I'm happy you could be here with me. If you're watching this, I am not in my studio tonight due to a storm outside that makes it hard to hear inside that studio because of a metal roof that's in there. You can find me, though, for the Generation Y Conservative on Facebook by searching for the Generation Y Conservative. You can also find me on YouTube by searching for the Generation Y Conservative. I'm also on Twitter at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end. You can also find the audio podcasts a couple days later on Google Play and Stitcher. And now you can also find me on KLRN Internet Radio on Sundays at 3 p.m. when this podcast is replayed from 3 to 5, which also has now been moved, thanks to KLRN Radio, over to an iTunes account under them as well. Every month I will be spotlighting different charities and everything, and this month's charity that I'm spotlighting is, let's see here, worthy of your donations and volunteer time. This month is Love Ran Red Foundation. This happens to be a local Lehigh Valley charity, so it was a suggestion by a friend of mine on Facebook today. I actually opened it up for suggestions, and it seems like I actually have quite a few different foundations and charities that we can be donating to for the rest of the year in regards to all the suggestions that I got. The Love Ran Red Foundation is a Christian-based nonprofit initiative formed for the purpose of caring for aging people with ASD and autism who need assistance with aspects of daily living and are no longer able to stay in their homes. Their facilities are designed to provide a caring environment for people with autism. It's a place where they can feel safe, loved, and appreciated. You can learn more and consider donating by visiting their website at www.loveranredfoundation.org. As you can see, I'm also sans a guest co-host tonight, but that's okay. It looks like we have a couple things set up. And actually, you're probably witnessing something pretty interesting right now, too, which is we're upgrading some of the technology, and I have some more things going on. You can see that the stream is not going through my tablet anymore, and it's actually going through a little bit better high definition off of our laptop here. And we'll actually be bringing in our HD camera and audio that you would get on the HD version on YouTube. We'll actually be going through that laptop as well in a very short amount of time. We just need to get a piece of equipment for that, so that's coming up as well. I've been taking some time lately to change around the podcast a little bit and bring in some new avenues of things to talk about. And one of those avenues has been the entertainment world. So I've been having a lot of fun with the podcast, with the political commentary, and have been working on ways to expand it into other areas of my interests that you may also be interested in as well if you're not a conservative. I have many friends who are liberals who might want to tune in and talk about some things as well. And if you're tuning in right now, I can see a few people already tuning in. Certainly, hit like and share, and also get involved in the conversation. Just type in hi and let me know that you're in here and we can start a conversation. Now that I have a laptop here, instead of depending on a tablet that's not facing me, I can actually see your comments and questions during the podcast. By the way, if you are tuning in on YouTube at a later date. I am doing this podcast on Fridays at 9 p.m. You can always tune in on my Facebook page, The Generation Y Conservative, and get involved in the conversation there as well. So, one of those avenues I was talking about is the entertainment world. So actually, that's what I want to start with tonight and talk to you a little bit about what's going on in Hollywood. If you haven't seen my movie reviews of Logan and Kong Skull Island, you should head over to my YouTube channel after this to check those out. I also have another one coming out by the beginning of next week where my wife and I will be joining together again. This time, she will be watching a movie that she actually wants to see. It'll be a review of Beauty and the Beast, which just came out with Emma Watson, which had its own political uproar around it, and we'll talk about that if it is justified. I think it will warrant a conversation no matter what in regards to that. But, you know, I dragged her to see Kong Skull Island, so I thought, hey, I kind of like Emma Watson as is anyway, so I might as well go and see that, and we can watch it. Plus, actually, not great information for you or anything, but actually Beauty and the Beast is the first movie that I actually went to see as a kid, and so that'll be kind of a little trip down memory lane as well. So let's talk about some exciting things that are happening in the entertainment this week, through with the release of 3 new movie trailers that got people pretty excited. First, we had a new trailer that was released for Marvel's Spider-Man, not the Sony franchise. Marvel has taken over a little bit with the kind of adaptation of Sony. They're involved. But Marvel's Spider-Man Homecoming, and that trailer has shed a light on a couple new details of the plot, with Michael Keaton will be the villain of the movie, playing a technologically advanced version of the Vulture from the comics, and Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark will be making an appearance as well, but will apparently be repossessing the spider suit that he gave to Tom Holland's Peter Parker due to some irresponsible superheroing. The new suit looks to have a couple cool features we haven't seen in Spidey movies, including what appears to be a reconnaissance Spidey chest symbol, adjustable cinch fitting and webbed appendages that allow for gliding in the air for short distances. And all in all, it's very exciting and certainly a movie that I can't wait to see this spring. I'll be doing a review of that when it comes out as well. I got a couple friends that will probably be joining me for that review. Tom Holland is the Spider-Man, though, in my mind. Tobey Maguire did a great job. Andrew Garfield did a fine job stepping into the Spidey boots as well. But in Captain America Civil War, it proved the acting chops of Holland as the character basically jumping straight out of the comics. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and click on the trailer that I'll be providing to take a look at that as well. The second trailer this week may have had you peeing in your pants. I admit I might have been there myself. Maybe just a little. I love movies of all different genres, and horror movies happens to be one of the top choices for me. You have superhero movies, action movies, horror movies. These are all things that are right up my alley. If you were to ask me what horror movie I was most afraid of growing up, that had the biggest impact on me and got me into horror, I would tell you that it was the movie It with Pennywise the Clown. I have hated clowns ever since then. No lie. I actually had a little alarm clock at one point in time when I was a kid that was the face of a clown inside, and I had to flip it upside down at night because it glowed with that stupid face, and I just wanted to punch it. I have hated clowns ever since, like I said, so you can imagine my skepticism over the last 2 years as I read about a remake of the original, which was made-for-TV movie, that shaped my nightmares growing up. The miniseries, which ran on TV and was a little over 3 hours in length, went back and forth between a group of friends that, as kids, defeated It, which was the monster of the movie, and 30 years later have to reunite to do it again as adults when It resurfaces. While there were certainly limitations to the Stephen King novel-based TV miniseries because it was made for television, the new movie is rated R, and if the trailer is any indication of how scary it's going to be, you may see me in the review running out of the theater with my GoPro attached in front of me like that MTV show Fear back in the day. This time around, Pennywise will be played by Bill Skarsgård, who looks terrifying and is portrayed as more of a Renaissance-era clown as opposed to the original's Tim Curry bright birthday appearance clown. You can also catch the Netflix runaway hit Stranger Things star Finn Wolfhard playing the 12-year-old version of Richie Tozier. Beep, beep, Richie. Check out the trailer by clicking on it if you're watching on YouTube right now, and catch it and my review this September. And remember, don't look into the deadlights. So the third trailer, and this is kind of a nice little segue here into the political realm for me, is, well, let's just put it this way. It had me both laughing and gagging in response after I watched it. Do you happen to remember back in 2006 when an Inconvenient Truth, what some consider a documentary, came out and made a bunch of predictions about global warming? In that movie, Al Gore said that the global sea levels would rise 20 feet because of melting ice caps. Instead, the South Pole ice shelves have been increasing, and in the meantime, the master of global warming hysteria bought a beachfront property. So, obviously, he didn't even believe what was coming out of his own mouth. And by the way, that's only one of a couple of his mansions, so he happens to have a lot of that electricity that he spends on all his properties each year that contributes to the global warming that he rails against. In that movie, he also showed Mount Kilimanjaro pictures since the 1970s and said it would be snow-free by 2016. I don't know if you've seen, but we're actually in 2017 right now, and it still has snow year-round. Gore also claimed that the temperatures would rise from increases in man-made carbon dioxide emissions, and that they would be uninterrupted and intensifying. He said that heat waves will become more common, like the one that killed 35,000 people across Europe in 2003. The problem is that for the last 15 years of data, there has been little to no increase in temperatures, and as a matter of fact, some science actually points to a slightly cooling phase over the last 15 years. Gore also predicted storms would become more frequent and intense as man-made emissions warmed the oceans. He said in the movie, and of course when the oceans get warmer, that causes stronger storms. That same year that we had the string of big hurricanes, we also set an all-time record for tornadoes. Gore's film, released just after Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast, he even showed footage of the destruction from that storm prominently in his film. He mentions how the U.S. was hit with a rash of severe storms in the early 2000s, and how Japan saw a record number of typhoons. The insurance industry has actually noticed this, and their recovered losses are going up, is what he said. But storms aren't more extreme since 2006, and as a matter of fact, not even findings from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, support his claim. Now, there are a bunch of other predictions that are completely off base and proven false by now. Even schools have opted to show a disclaimer when presenting it to the students because of the false claims made. So you would think that Al Gore would have learned his lesson. But no. In this week's third trailer that was released for the movie An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power, which you have to laugh at the hypocrisy of that title alone, Al Gore is coming back, not learning his lesson, and instead doubling down on his global warming hysteria with a focus on the left's deity, Barack Obama, pushing the agenda and their Satan, President Donald Trump, the spotlight of people who are wrong and denying climate change, denying science, as they would say. By the way, before I go on, there's an interesting article. I forgot to throw it in here because I think that would be actually something that would be really good to point out too. There was just an article that came out recently in regards to they claim that 97% of scientists, climate scientists, say that global warming is actually happening and is true, that there's a 97% consensus. Barack Obama falsely claimed and bumped that up to 99% at one point in time in one of his speeches to make it sound even more drastic of a number, like 97 wasn't high enough. But there was an article that just came out recently in which they said that there was a verification process or something where they had a fake scientist, basically a journalist of some sort, put in their credentials to get their word out on global warming and join this movement of this consensus of scientists that make this list for the 97%. And they put the name under fraud, Dr. Fraud. And this person actually got in and they said, yeah, we'd love to hear from you on what you have to say. So it was completely fabricated. This guy just made up a name, and it was specifically with fraud. So you have to wonder how many of these people on this list of climate change scientists actually are real scientists, or what their credentials are. I mean, as you'll see, we have another person that's been getting into his own little heated battles lately that claims to be a scientist and really doesn't have the credentials either. Okay, so Superstorm Sandy takes center stage in this one, as well as some other natural weather events that have surprisingly happened before the Industrial Revolution as well. So go figure on that one. What I mean by that is you have Superstorm Sandy and all these other hurricanes. They've always been happening. Hurricanes have always been happening. They reach different intensities, especially with the different weather patterns that we see. So it's just ridiculous to claim that Superstorm Sandy was a direct result of global warming. There's no proof to back that up. What you likely won't see is a challenging viewpoint, since Gore is famously known to not do interviews or presentations with skeptics. You also probably won't see any other debates, like when Tucker Carlson put Bill Nye, the I want to be a science guy but lack the credentials, to shame with simple questions about global warming, like, percentage-wise, how much do humans contribute to the overall climate change? To which, after being pressed for multiple times, Bill replied, 100%. Someone needs to do a little research on that one. Even I have some very simple questions for these people who believe that climate change is radically happening because of man-made carbon, everything that's going on. If science has proved the existence of multiple ice ages over the course of history, predating mankind, and our Industrial Revolution, what brought us into those ice ages, before the Industrial Revolution, and what brought us into those ice ages, but the question is, what brought us into those ice ages? And more importantly, what caused the Earth to heat up and get us out of them if we weren't even around at the time? That's something I would really like to hear Bill Nye or someone, or even Al Gore, answer. How did we go in and out of ice ages before the Industrial Revolution? That's basically what I was getting at there. An Inconvenient Sequel is coming out this July, and I'm debating on doing a review of it because I take issue with giving my hard-earned money to this bastard who I take issue with because of him spreading some pretty serious false information that people should be aware of. So, those are some of the movie things going on right now, and actually I meant to write down a list of movies that are coming out shortly that I want to do reviews on, so I will be going to see. What you could do is keep tuned into my Facebook page if you happen to live in Eastern PA and want to see any of these movies and want to jump in on the review. I'd be happy to have you if you're able to make it and don't mind being on camera, can talk about things, and don't curse a lot. So, let's see here. I'll be putting out a list on Facebook shortly of the movies that are coming up there I'm going to see. Lots of Marvel stuff. I'm a big Marvel fan. So, let's see. An ABC affiliate, WTVD, reported on Tuesday that a 5-year-old in North Carolina was suspended for playing with a stick that resembled a gun. Brandy Miller said that her daughter Caitlin was suspended for 1 day on Friday after she and her 2 friends were playing King and Queen at her school in Hoke County. In the game, Caitlin played a guard protecting the Royals and picked up the stick gun to imitate shooting an intruder into the kingdom. We know why it's bad, Miller told WTVD. We watch the news, but then I have to tell my kid, you're not allowed to play like that in school because people do bad things to kids your age. The Hoke County school system defended its policy in a statement and said it would not tolerate assaults, threats, or harassment from any student. Let's see here. Hopefully my live stream didn't end there. Okay. So basically, in regards to this zero tolerance policy, a zero tolerance policy in schools basically states that you can't have a weapon or anything that looks like a weapon. I've talked about this in multiple podcasts in the past, especially some of the offshoot videos I've done. I've talked about specifically the zero tolerance policy, where people have got suspended for pointing their finger like a gun at someone. They've gotten suspended for little 3-inch G.I. Joe figure guns. And it's just a bunch of ridiculous stuff that's going on. And it just drives me insane to see that we actually have, this okay. Sorry, some streaming issues on Facebook Live right now. It just drives me crazy that we have this just asinine policy where there's no give and take. Like, I completely understand. There are some seriously real looking knives out there that are plastic. They look real. And if you would bring them into a school and someone sees one of them flash or something like that in the pocket of someone or in the hand of someone, I can see that being a real big problem, because if it looks like a knife and you can't really tell from a distance, there's an issue there. There's also an issue with toy guns that look real, right? And in regards to that, there's some realistic looking toy guns out there that you have to, I believe it's law or something, where you actually have to put like an orange tip on the end of these plastic guns to signify that this is a toy gun. But, those types of things can be painted black. These things can be made to look real. And it's just, it causes issues. But when we're suspending kids or expelling them because of guns that are the size of a keychain, this all goes back to liberal progressive policies in which they're trying to make kids so afraid of even the imagery of guns that they get scared for life, and that they make these policies so that it hinders any further action. And then the next step, obviously, to that is them going the next step and saying, with the banning of certain guns or ammo first is usually how it starts. And then that leads to the certain types of guns. They keep on deeming more and more that's bad for ownership, and until they can get rid of them completely. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, and that's why they keep on pushing these types of policies. But when it comes to zero tolerance policy in schools, like I said, we keep on punishing these kids for doing things that anybody that growing up would have done while they're playing, imaginary games outside with their friends. So it's just ridiculous to me, because, what's next? Once they stop attacking guns, I want to know what the next issue is with what they're going to be attacking, because it just seems to be a constant erosion of everything. I mean, we have stories coming up on different things in regards to, some funny stuff in regards to the Women's March and transgenders, and we're trying to. I see articles posted all the times by my friends on how men and women in relationships, especially marriage, shouldn't take the male and female role in marriage anymore, that there should be crossing over and men should be taking care of the kids and doing the housework, and the women should be out working and everything. And they're pushing this agenda that, if that's what the family wants to do, let it naturally happen. It doesn't make sense why they would be pushing this kind of crap. This is all just cultural things right now, that this is liberal progressive centered to force people into thinking the way that they want you to think. And what they want you to think right now is that we're a genderless society, and that guns are completely harmful. There's no use for them at all, so completely get rid of them if possible. And that roles don't exist in society anymore. For crying out loud, my generation right now, millennials that are growing up in their 20s, don't believe that they're grown-ups until they hit the age of 30. You had people like George Washington out in the woods preparing for war at the age of 13, and now we have people in their 20s looking for safe spaces. I think that there's a real problem with that. So, what we were just talking about. So this politically correct crowd, all right, with the Women's March on the transgender stuff. I thought this story was absolutely hilarious, and I said, remember when I told you that the politically correct crowd is eating each other up? Well, transgender women are oppressed now because pussy hats, what became famous in the Women's March, are now are genital based. So that's oppressive towards transgender women. Krista Suh, a Los Angeles woman, created the now infamous symbol of the Women's March by knitting together the pussy hat. Okay, that was so popular with the march and everything. You also had Ashley Judd wearing it in some of her speeches and everything, which is ridiculous. But Marie Solis of Mike wrote that while clever, Suh's pussy hats set the tone for a march that would focus acutely on genitalia at the expense of the transgender community. Signs like Pussy Power, Viva la Vulva, and Pussy Grabs Back all sent a clear and oppressive message to trans women especially. Having a vagina is essential to womanhood. Oh, the horror. She also said the main reason... Oh, I'm sorry, this is someone else. The main reason I decided to not go was because of the pussy hats, said 28-year-old Jade Lejek, a trans woman from Modesto, California. I get that they're a response to the grab them by the pussy thing, but I think some people fixated on it the wrong way. She expected her local march to have its fair share of trans exclusionary radical feminists known as TERFs. I love all these new terms. It's gonna make your head spin with all this stuff. As LeJack described it, there are two categories of TERFs. So again, this stands for trans exclusionary radical feminists. Okay, there are two categories of TERFs. One is the accidental TERF, okay? So these are ones who have signs that equate womanhood with having a vagina, she said. The other category, Lejak explained, includes feminists who argue trans women are actually men in disguise trying to infiltrate their spaces. There's a war coming. And it might be fun to watch in this case. The article goes on to give you a bunch of other mental gymnastic routines for trying to figure out exactly who is what and what is going on and who likes who and what they are and what they identify and what these terms even mean. You have to have Google open in another page just to figure out what the heck they're talking about. For instance, this quote, for 20-year-old Sam Foray, a non-binary student in Ohio, and their girlfriend, because you can't use him or her, or his or her, girlfriend Lillian McDaniel, who is trans, there had been other warning signs that the Women's March might be a dangerous space for them. So, this person is non-binary, which means that they consider themselves both, or at any given time can switch up whatever they want. I didn't exactly Google that one because as of right now, there's some women's colleges that have over 70 definitions of different types of genders that you can classify yourself as, for crying out loud. And then their girlfriend is a transgender as well. So, there were other signs that might say that this was a dangerous space for them. This kind of reminds me of the other instances I've brought up in my podcast before, like that Caitlyn Jenner proving that men can do women better than women by winning the Woman of the Year award. The Pride Parade in New York City asking attendees to not come in drag because it would offend the transgender crowd. And the obvious fact that with us living in a genderless society, what the heck is the purpose of feminism anymore, celebrating a classification that dare to be mentioned? It doesn't make sense to have that classification anymore of being a feminist. What does being a female mean in a genderless society? It doesn't make sense, especially when the power of a woman in what she does is being pushed that men should be doing it too, or that men should be doing women things, women should be doing men things. You have to jump over these liberal progressive hurdles to figure out what the heck is going on with this stuff anymore. Dave Chappelle, one of everyone's favorite comedians, has even come under fire and attack after his recent Netflix special came out, and he joked about the transgender and proper pronoun situations in our culture. And I actually agree with his statement. He said, I support anyone's right to be who they are inside, but to what degree do I have to participate in your self-image? Why do I have to switch up my pronoun game for this mother effer? And his special is actually pretty funny because he talks about a situation with him running into a situation where someone passed out, and he said, "Is she okay?" And the two men turned around and said, "How dare you call her he," or something like that. And he said, well, she just fell off the bench and her dress came up and something is sticking out there, so you might want to tend to her. Let's see here. So yeah, that's pretty fun. Tune into Dave Chappelle's stand-up because it looks like it's actually like a mini-series that Netflix put together. They're doing a great job lately with that kind of stuff actually as well. I just want to shoot back to some of the entertainment stuff that's going on right now. I am in the midst of Marvel's series on Netflix, The Iron Fist, which I'm actually enjoying, and that's a follow-up to... we've had 2 seasons now of Daredevil. We've had Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and all these guys are coming together in kind of a Avengers sort of way with the Defender series, which either comes out this year or early next year. I'm pretty excited about that because I think they've been doing a fantastic job. Now, review-wise, Iron Fist has been getting less than favorable reviews on review websites and everything, as opposed to, I mean, they're comparing it to Daredevil, which is phenomenal. Luke Cage is just an incredible series, and I thought Jessica Jones had one of the most spectacular villains ever portrayed in a superhero movie because he can control your mind just by telling you what to do. So unless you tear out his tongue or something like that, the guy was basically unstoppable. How do you get close to a guy that can speak you into doing what he wants you to do? So that was pretty neat. I was pretty excited about that. So that's kind of another thing. I'm totally into the superhero stuff. My favorite shows right now are The Flash and Arrow. I watch Legends of Tomorrow. I think that if you take Marvel out of the TV equation with their Netflix series, DC is doing TV better than their movies, and Marvel is doing movies better than their TV shows. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything. But when you actually look at their Marvel Netflix series, man, that just... They're setting the tone for things. And, politically, there are some other neat shows on Netflix, too, like House of Cards. So if you guys watch that, that's a phenomenal show as well and always has my interest. So let's see here. So let's get into a little technology. I was going to do this last, but I think I'm going to do it before my big topic here. In a piece in Vanity Fair on Elon Musk titled "Elon Musk's $1 Billion Crusade to Stop the AI Apocalypse." So this article starts with this little story. It says, "It was just a friendly little argument about the fate of humanity. Dennis Hassabis, a leading creator of advanced artificial intelligence, was chatting with Elon Musk, a leading doomsayer, about the perils of artificial intelligence. They are two of the most consequential and intriguing men in Silicon Valley who don't actually live there. Hassabis, a co-founder of the mysterious London laboratory DeepMind," which I really want to look into, that sounds really interesting what they're doing, had come to Musk's SpaceX rocket factory outside of Los Angeles a few years ago. They were in the canteen talking as a massive rocket part traveled overhead. Musk explained that his ultimate goal at SpaceX was the most important project in the world, interplanetary colonization. Hassabis replied that, in fact, he was working on the most important project in the world, which was developing artificial superintelligence. Musk countered that this was the one reason we needed to colonize Mars, so we'll have a bolt hole if AI goes rogue and turns on humanity. Amused, Hassabis said that AI would simply follow humans to Mars. This did nothing to soothe Musk's anxieties, even though he says there are scenarios where AI wouldn't follow. So that's how they start this article off. And what it is that it's actually talking about Elon Musk, talking about how we're mere years away. In some cases, he said from now, about 4 to 5 years away from being so technologically advanced. Just the thought of where we have come. Okay, so It's 2017 right now. I was in college in the early 2000s, and my cell phone at the time was a flip phone. There were no smartphones at that time at all. I don't even know what BlackBerry was doing at that time and what their interface looked like on their phone. But it wasn't until, I believe, 2006 or 7 when the iPhone finally came out. And it was so expensive at the time that not many people actually had it. So you have to wonder, you take a look at what we have technology-wise now, and this ability, technology is one of my things as well. So it's another thing that I geek out on. Microsoft is developing something for the last couple of years called Microsoft HoloLens. So it's kind of a technological jump over virtual reality, which requires you to put on these goggles to view things in a digital space. It actually places you into that digital space. But Microsoft has developed a technology that it's clear goggles that you put over your face, and it actually scans the environment and can tell the elevations of different things in the room, and it's called augmented reality. So what it can actually do is drop digital things onto the surfaces of what's actually in your house. So you're actually viewing everything regular in your room, like, let's say. So if I'm sitting in my living room and I'm looking at a coffee table, I can actually play on my coffee table in a three-dimensional space, have Minecraft show up and actually build things in Minecraft on my coffee table. I can have a game character run off my coffee table and jump off and onto the floor and run up the wall, go across the ceiling. I can do races on the walls with cars and different things with friends. I can actually take and open Netflix in this, expand it into a movie theater size screen from what I'm seeing, and throw it up against the wall. I mean, all these things, it's taking things to a Star Trek level. It's pretty amazing. But what we have here is what Musk is talking about, is that we're going to take this leap into bringing this digital age stuff that is an appendage of us now. We always have our cell phone on us, and actually integrating it into our biological systems. So he's saying that there's going to come a time when you literally plug your brain in to the internet and everything. Just imagine being able to learn a different language while you're going over there, to a different country. So if you're going to Spain and you want to learn Spanish, you want to go to Germany and you want to learn German, you could upload that language and be speaking it immediately. And you think that might be really far off, but think about it this way. There's something out there called the Babelfish right now, I think is what it's called. And it's an earpiece that you put into your ear, and you give the other one, the pair of it, to another person that is in the country that you're trying to speak with, and you set them. Okay, so if I'm in Italy and I give it to an Italian, I can set theirs to English and mine to Italian, right? So I say something to them, and immediately, in real time, it will translate what I'm saying to them into Italian right into their ears. And what they say back to me gets translated into English immediately into my ears. We are speaking each other's languages while literally saying our language. So is it that far of a jump for us to assume that this kind of technology can be integrated into our system and immediately be saying it when the technology is wearable right now? I don't think so. I think it's a very possible jump. When you're looking at religious-wise what the implications are, I don't know. Some people have always been afraid of, mass production of things that get integrated into, one's person on like this whole mark of the beast thing that people are always talking about and have been talking about for decades, if not centuries. So that's something interesting. It's an interesting topic, and this is stuff that we have to look at now and start wondering, are we going to accept this kind of stuff? Because from what they're saying here is that this technology isn't something that you're going to be able to deny putting into yourself so much, just because it'll be so abundantly available, it'll become cheap. That's a law of supply and demand right there. So you'll have the ability to buy this technology at a very cheap price, and instantly the ramifications of something like this are astronomical. If you have the ability to learn something immediately by download, it literally takes away the cause to have any schooling at all, Because what is there to learn? There's no use to sit in classrooms anymore because you can download what you need to know. I mean, literally, you could have the Department of Education could become one person that's in charge of putting together a curriculum per grade level on what they should be learning today, and just send out an email, or email will probably be non-existent at that time. It'll probably just be some sort of wireless connection to everyone's devices in their heads, and you download what you need to know that day. Or it could be just a mass download. We could have 5-year-olds or 3-year-olds or 2-year-olds walking around with the ability to speak every language in the world and tell us more things than we've ever known or accumulated in knowledge in our lifetime. How scary is that? That's pretty phenomenal, and I don't know what to say about that. The education implications are one thing, but then you also have things like work, right? So if you're talking about the ability for someone to succeed, those that choose not to do this type of thing because they're fearful of what could happen. Technology always has pitfalls in some areas. So what if it fries your brain? What if it has long-term damaging effect where my one friend that Brant, you guys have seen him on the podcast before as a guest co-host. He was saying what you look at in regards to our biological makeup with how we remember things, right? How we access long-term and short-term memory. We can only store so much information in regards to what we are able to remember and pull from, right? So if this technology is available and we download something, will it only be accessible for a certain amount of time? Right. What are the ramifications of this type of technology on Alzheimer's and dementia, other mental diseases and everything? It's pretty phenomenal. In regards to the employment situation, what I was getting to before is those that choose not to do this are going to be at a disadvantage because those who choose to do it and have this technology implemented into them will have the ability to learn whatever it is that they want to do. I mean, what's stopping you from being a doctor or a surgeon or a rocket scientist at that point? If it's just downloading a manual on what to do, downloading years worth of education into, a matter of seconds, right? So those that choose not to do it, that want to go through the traditional means of education, they're at a disadvantage because there's always going to be a loss of information at some point in time. So how good is this technology going to be that sets them apart from everybody else? It's pretty amazing. Let's see here. So getting back to this article, it said Elon Musk began warning about the possibility of AI running amok 3 years ago. It probably hadn't eased his mind when one of Hasabi's partners in DeepMind, Shane Legg, stated flatly, "I think human extinction will probably occur, and technology will likely play a part in this. Sometimes what will happen is a scientist will get so engrossed in their work that they don't really realize the ramifications of what they're doing." I think this is something that Elon Musk said. I didn't put who actually said that. But I wrote down, this is really reminiscent of Dr. Malcolm's warning in Jurassic Park. And let me read this again real quick, what they said. "Sometimes what will happen is a scientist will get so engrossed in their work that they don't really realize the ramifications of what they're doing." So how far apart from Dr. Malcolm's warning in Jurassic Park is it when he said, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should? Musk said that the way to escape human obsolescence in the end may be by having some sort of merger of biological intelligence and machine intelligence. "We're already cyborgs," Musk told the reporter in February. "Your phone and your computer are extensions of you, but the interface is through your finger movements or speech, which are very slow. With a neural lace inside your skull, you would flash data from your brain wirelessly to your digital devices or to virtual unlimited computer power in the cloud. For a meaningful partial brain interface, I think we're roughly 4 or 5 years away." And that's why I was talking about the 4 or 5 years away. That's insane to think about that. He's talking about, so he's almost behind on the times just with this article that was written about him, because I believe it's Sony and Panasonic right now. I'm not sure which companies they are. They're coming out with smart contact lenses. I was telling you about how Microsoft is putting out this HoloLens, right, which augments reality. It augments reality and places digital things into your physical space that you're actually looking at the time. Well, these smart contact lenses will allow you the ability to actually zoom in and see things better for those that have eye deterioration or, nearsightedness, farsightedness, what have you. Zoom in on different things and focus better. It'll also have the ability to do digital interfaces on it. So here Elon Musk is saying that the future is being able to wirelessly transmit data from this lace inside of your skull to any of your digital devices. But why have any digital devices anymore if you can literally see out of your smart contact lenses what you want? That would be, for instance, on your phone or anything. I mean, you could. The technology that's in these contact lenses allows you to blink a certain way and actually record video. So we're on the horizon of that as it is. It's just amazing that we're moving so fast, and that's kind of the thing is, we have jumped technologically leaps and bounds, and every time we do it, we're jumping even further and further and faster because every technology leads to more efficient and faster technology right down the line. It becomes what's the word I'm looking for? Incremental. It just incrementally increases exponentially. Two big words. I think exponentially is the original word I was looking for there. So this is a very important article that all of us should read and at least consider on how we approach artificial intelligence in the near future and whether or not we literally plug into the machine as a society or individual. You can head over to my Facebook page now and check out the article on that and read the whole thing because it's just absolutely fascinating, and I think it's worth the read. And I think that in intellectual conversation and debate, I think we need to have these types of conversations because these types of things are right around the corner, and we need to decide where exactly we're going with it and what we are going to, how we're going to choose to get involved with it, if we get involved with it. And if we don't get involved with it, what are the ramifications of that? Like I said, that's going to set you behind the curve as opposed to the people that actually are using it. So it's going to be fascinating, and we're living through the times right now to see these absolutely insane things happening around us. I think it's pretty cool. So here is the main topic for tonight. I am taking a big issue with Trump right now and this healthcare bill. You guys heard me talk about that before, about my issues with this. Basically what I agree with Rand Paul on, it was Obamacare Light, this healthcare plan that they tried putting out there. But conservatives that have been pro-Trump since the primaries are having a hard time figuring out how to do verbal gymnastics to defend Trump's attack on the House Freedom Caucus and the Heritage Foundation, two very conservative appendages of the Republican Party, for the failure of the Republican healthcare bill to pass that was meant to replace Obamacare but turned out to be Obamacare Light. So President Trump tweeted on March 30th, which happens to be yesterday, but just in case you're watching this in the future, that the Freedom Caucus will hurt the entire Republican agenda if they don't get on the team, and fast. We must fight them and Dems in 2018. With an exclamation mark. That's why I read it that way. What did Trump and the Republicans promise in the election season in regards to health care? Well, some people would disagree. At times, Trump said that he was going to completely repeal Obamacare, and other times he was saying that he would repeal and replace, and gave scarce details on how exactly they were going to do that. The fact of the matter is, they didn't say anything about replacing it with a light version of it. And, This thing was done behind closed doors as well, with people like Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, who needs to go immediately. Him, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Charlie Dent. I mean, I could name a bunch of these guys that are just absolutely ridiculous. But this was done behind closed doors, and when people like Rand Paul tried to go and see what was in the bill, they were shut out and shut outside the door. There was actual video of Rand Paul trying to get into the room where the bill was, and he wasn't allowed in. There were armed, I don't know if they were armed guards outside, but there were big guys that were guarding the room, and he was pushed away. Now, this is pretty interesting, being that one of the things that we were told by the ardent, always Trump supporters, is that Trump was going to be one of the most conservative presidents since Ronald Reagan, if not more so, because of his influence outside of being a politician. So why is it that we are getting into a position right now where he's attacking conservatives? It's absolutely mind-boggling to me, because we have this ability to get things done. Okay, and this is the other biggest issue that I take with what's going on right now, which is over the last decade of me paying attention to politics, I've heard the same thing from both parties. Well, if you just give us the House, we'll be able to get things done that will then go through to the Senate, and then we can see what happens in the Senate. Well, now we have the House, but if you just give us the Senate too, and we have both parts of Congress, we'll be able to push through bills a lot more easier and get that up the chain to the president. Well, if you just give us the presidency, now that we have the House and Senate, we'll definitely be able to get things done, because we're controlling two of the three branches, so obviously we'll be able to get things done. And then it's, we don't have a majority on the Supreme Court, so they would be able to smack it down. So if you just give us the House, the Senate, the presidency, and the Supreme Court, we'll be able to get things done. Well, I have news for you guys. We're living in that time right now. We have control over everything. And instead of putting out a conservative bill, what we're actually doing is putting out a piece of crap Democrat bill of Obamacare Light that still plays to the motives of what the Democrats were pushing out with Obamacare. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I've been talking about how this was placating, again, just like Obamacare was, and I know the left hates to, self-evaluate and look at that bill as what it is for what it is, but this is just another bill that placates to the insurance companies and their advocates and their, what are they called, that advocate on behalf of companies and everything. Either way, you have these people. So what happened, and I'll quickly go over this again, but I've been talking about it in previous podcasts, is this bill, again, paid out to the insurance companies. It was a deal made with the devil in the details, being that these insurance companies were going to get their payouts no matter what, which is why the insurance companies pushed it through. And by the way, they're eating themselves on this too, because the whole purpose of Obamacare was to eventually collapse so that we could have single payer, which would eliminate the insurance companies altogether. And how many jobs will be lost there? How many trillions of dollars would be lost from insurance companies? So they just didn't see the writing on the wall that this was the true intentions of the Democrats, because they wanted it to fail. They apparently the insurance companies thought that the Democrats or liberal progressives had the best intentions and didn't see the long game in this one. But the Republicans came along, and of course they had the better idea on how to replace Obamacare, which was to come up with basically the same exact thing, except in this case, instead of paying the individual mandate, which under the Democrat plan was you had to pay a fine if you didn't get insurance, but most people ended up paying the fine anyway instead of getting the insurance because it costs less than getting the insurance itself. So what the Republicans decided to do was they came up with this idea that if you don't get insurance, you pay, instead of a fine to the government, you pay a fine directly to the insurance companies themselves. So all this leads back to the advocating of the insurance companies paying off these politicians on both sides. Okay, this isn't just a Republican issue at this point. That was the same exact problem that we were having with the Democrats with Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. So one of the main enemies here is the insurance companies and their ability to keep on paying off politicians on both sides to get what they want into these medical bills, when they're actually the ones that are the problems. Okay, so what I always come back to is when people tell me that we have a healthcare problem here in the United States of America, I always tell them there's a clear distinction that words matter in this case. Sticks and stones notwithstanding, that words matter in regards to what you're defining as a problem. Healthcare in the United States is not a problem. We have the best healthcare system out there. The left can argue all they want on access to healthcare in other countries and different things that are done, but the fact of the matter is that we have high up officials in other countries, the people with means of any type to get over here for healthcare, come here instead of staying in their countries to get healthcare. We do not have a healthcare problem here in the United States of America. What we do have is an access via insurance companies problem with healthcare here in America. And there's ways to alleviate that kind of situation and not with what we have going on right now with either of these bills. There are solutions, and I'm actually going to get to that because one of the things I have criticized some of the other conservative commentators on over the last couple of years is while they're great at complaining about what's going on, they don't ever offer solutions. And we just got done talking about that in Tomi Lahren's case. A fantastic voice, I think, for the conservative right, if she has the knowledge to back up her claims on what's going on and can have the ability to propose solutions to the problems that she identifies. I said in the last podcast on Trevor Noah's show, The Daily Show on Comedy Central, when she was cornered by Trevor Noah on Colin Kaepernick because she went for weeks in her Final Thoughts segments, basically laying into him on his means of protesting at NFL games by sitting during the God bless America, the national anthem. While he was sitting during that, Trevor Noah cornered her and said, well, how else should a black man protest what's going on in this country as an NFL star? And she was cornered and didn't have a solution after weeks of laying into Colin Kaepernick for what he was doing. So, we have to have solutions. I happen to have solutions. They're not my solutions. These are solutions that have been proposed for decades now. But when you can pull them all together in one spot and clearly lay them out and why they're a benefit, I think that's a good thing to be able to do. So I am going to get into that as well. Okay, so what do we leave off here? What did the Republicans promise? They promised not this, which is what they gave us. This was a plan by all means reflected a Democrat bill than anything else. And that's exactly right. There's not much in here that actually changed. Over the long run, financially, what was happening with this healthcare bill is we were saving a little bit more money in the long run as consumers of the healthcare industry and participants, I guess you could say. And it pushed off the debt situation a little bit further. But really, in essence, this was more of a kicking the can down the road type situation. Let's see here. Yeah, here's one of my favorite things. And I have not heard, with me listening to conservative radio, I have not heard any conservatives actually talk about this angle to this story. Why didn't Trump follow his own rules on how to negotiate that he laid out in his own book, The Art of the Deal? So if you're not familiar with this, and I just know it offhand because I have better books to pick up if I actually do pick up any books recently than The Art of the Deal. In The Art of the Deal, the way that he says that you need to negotiate is by basically coming off as crazy and going for absolutely everything that you want and then some. Okay, if your idea is to, buy, let's just bring it down to simple terms. If you want a car, okay, and you want the luxury car, so let's say it's a Ferrari, and you go into and there's an ability to have a negotiation process with the dealership. You say, okay, I see that you have this listed for $250,000 on the price tag there. So here's what I want. I want to get it for $200,000. But on top of that, I want you to put a treatment over it, a ceramic finish, so that it never gets scratches or any watermarks. I want you to upgrade the sound system that's in there. And I want oil changes for the next decade for free on the house. And while you're at it, I want you to treat me to dinner every time I come in to get those oil changes as well. So for $50,000 less, that's what I want, and I want you to do that. Now that sounds crazy, right? But what he proposes is, in the negotiation process, what actually will happen is you start at this high level. You start at this high level here. You expect to get away with this level down here. But during the negotiation process, things always move down because you're always trying to meet in the middle with things. So in this case, he might get a majority of those things, but he's probably going to end up paying a little bit more than $250,000 for the Ferrari. In this case, with this healthcare bill, he should have proposed absolutely everything that the conservative people, like those in the House Freedom Caucus and the Heritage Foundation, have been pushing for years as conservative solutions to the healthcare crisis, what they label a crisis. If we had started with those foundational principles that we want in here, and I'll go over some of those solutions as well in a little bit, and then some, we could have ended up with something a little bit better. But instead, what Paul Ryan and these other Republicans behind closed doors put out was something slightly better than Obamacare. So in the negotiation process, what we're going to end up with is a pile of dog crap, essentially. That's what we're going to get. It's going to be something that very much resembles, if not just settling on Obamacare with some modifications. That's what it would actually come down to. So why didn't Donald Trump actually take his own advice and use the types of strategies that he laid out in The Art of the Deal to actually get a fantastic bill that might have had some, moving back and forth across the aisles and some negotiation processes, that maybe some things ended up in there that we didn't want, but at least get the majority of what we want, for crying out loud. So even, and this is pretty surprising to me, because what drove me nuts during the primaries is that Sean Hannity was just the biggest Trump cheerleader in conservative media that there was, and just refused to clearly identify the hypocrisy of him saying that what Trump was doing in some cases was okay, and then getting called out by, I think it was John Stewart? Or Trevor Noah. Maybe it was Trevor Noah, labeling the inconsistencies of him, what he was saying about President Obama, and then allowing Donald Trump to get away with the same types of things. So what's surprising to me is that even conservative media star and Trump cheerleader Sean Hannity has finally broke with the president and sided with the Freedom Caucus, saying, now, in my opinion, it's not the Freedom Caucus that's responsible for the GOP failure in this case to repeal and replace Obamacare. This legislation was flawed from the beginning. It was created behind closed doors, and not one single member saw the bill until it was rolled out, and that made it a disaster. So, here's the other thing on this. Why are Trump supporters so quick to defend the president on this? I'm not calling out people specifically, but and it's not just my friend that I had over last night, but I had a friend over last night for dinner that said, I don't understand why he's attacking conservatives and saying he's going to work with Democrats, but he must have a plan. He must be working on something that we just can't see yet. It's these mental gymnastics that they're trying to push through their head right now, where they're saying Donald Trump has a plan. Something is going on here. I mean, he's a business guy. He's not a politician. So this is just a game, and he's ahead of the curve, and he knows what he's doing. And we've got to get like this. What it's going to be, because Donald Trump is the smartest man on earth, is the most conservative healthcare plan there is, and it's going to be like magician stuff, and you're just going to be shocked. He's going to get it through it because that's the way he is. No, BS. The problem is that people like me have been talking about how Donald Trump is not a conservative for so long, and that once he got in, he would be turning more leftist in his policies. And this is actually what we're seeing. Read the writing on the wall. Don't act like there's another wall behind it that's going to magically appear with a black light, and you're going to see this new writing that, and all of a sudden, slap your head. Oh my gosh, look at that. He came out with this. No, Donald Trump is a problem, okay? He's attacking conservatives right now that have been trying to push for what the people demanded with the results of this election last year in this healthcare bill with the wall. And now reports are coming out that the wall's not even going to get built and that we don't have the funding for that. And somehow that's got to get resolved. And even if we did go through with it, we're not going to get a fence or anything in certain portions. And everything is just keeps on falling apart. And that's not to say, I'm not completely ripping into Donald Trump. He's actually been doing a lot of things I agree with. I don't like the way he's getting a lot of those things done. But if you keep on making up excuses and not holding our own candidate's feet to the fire during his term, and another president takes over for him in 4 years from now on the other side, and they're doing the same thing, and you start throwing a temper tantrum, you're going to be called a hypocrite. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to be one of those people that's called a hypocrite. We need to hold our people more accountable than the opposing party. Otherwise, we're going to look like the worst hypocrites. And one issue I've always taken with all my podcasts since I started doing them was this executive order crap. The fact that we laid into President Obama about executive orders and his mistreatment of them, neglect of how he used executive orders. We laid into him all the time. Oh, here comes another executive order. How dare he? Constitutionally, that's not something that he should be doing. But now, President Trump, every single decision he's making is based on executive orders. Now, I have some people that would argue that the executive orders are to cancel out executive orders that were done by President Obama, and it's the fastest and most efficient way to do that. I can understand that argument, okay? That's not everything that he's doing. That's not all these executive orders that he's pushing through. But things need to slow their roll, okay? There's a reason why the Founding Fathers set up three branches of government: the judicial, the executive, and the legislative. They're all supposed to balance each other out. We have a lot of people in this country right now on both sides that when their party's in power in the executive branch, they treat their president like a king. It's unbelievable to me to see these videos still glowing and gushing about President Obama and how, I miss him, and Michelle was such a classy lady, and he was the man, he had swagger and all these other things. And it's like, what do you want? Like a foot bath for them? Do you want to massage their feet a little or something? Like, these people are not kings. As a matter of fact, a politician by definition is a servant of the people. Okay? I mean, it's a step down. It's a step into servitude for us to represent all of us, not to rule over all of us. So, and it's the same thing with the right. I have multiple friends that act like President Trump is the end-all, be-all to every situation and political climate that we have in the world, to be honest with you. These things that are going on in North Korea and Russia and all the problems that we have there. I applaud him for his reaching out and working with Israel as an ally and friend. Benjamin Netanyahu is probably my top favorite politician in the modern era that we live in. I think he's a modern Winston Churchill. He's a bulldog. But we have Trump doing these things and getting away with everything. And Trump supporters are just allowing it to happen because they believe in even the worst situations that this guy is just a master at his craft and has the ability to turn situations around at the last minute, at the 11th hour, into what's going to turn out to be the most conservative avenue of all time. And I'll tell you right now that the main problem that we have with the president's office, I actually don't think that the push from Trump into the worst aspects of what he's doing is actually him. I believe that the worst part of the president's office right now is actually Steve Bannon, who used to be the editor-in-chief at Breitbart. I think that he's an extremist. I think that he is a dangerous guy. I think he has been recorded as saying that he wants the whole system to burn down, that he doesn't believe in either party. And I think that he has an uncanny influence on the president that I don't like. As a matter of fact, in regards to this healthcare bill, he named certain people from the House Freedom Caucus and the Heritage Foundation and told President Trump to put them on a list of people to look out for. You know, Obama, now you think that that's pretty crazy, right? That Trump has an enemies list. I mean, let's label it what it is. He has an enemies list. And liberals may throw their arms up at that and think, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But where were they for the last 8 years when Obama had an enemies list as well? He most definitely had an enemies list and used it. Now, the problem with that is, you know, it's all a matter of perspective. You know, I'm not a big conservative voice right now. I hope to be. But Steve Bannon is more than welcome to put me on that list, that enemies list, as someone that might speak out against the president. Because I'll tell you what, a lot of people are going to look at that list and relabel it as a patriots list of people that actually stand up for other people in this country. And I'll happily put my name on that list right now. So that's an invitation. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Here's why the Democrats are concerned about this health care bill. This is interesting, an interesting aspect that we should be looking at. The Democrats fought that this was a Republican disaster despite it being corrections and continuing, in a lot of ways, Obamacare, that they even acknowledge isn't working. Take, for instance, the mouthpiece of the millennial movement, Bernie Sanders. You know, what's fascinating about the Sanders-Cruz debate on healthcare on CNN a couple months ago is that, or maybe it was last month, I don't know, time's been kind of flying by, is that neither of them like Obamacare. I think that CNN was trying to get Bernie Sanders to defend Obamacare, but Bernie Sanders isn't a fan of Obamacare either. He wants a single-payer healthcare plan, a universal system. So he sees the fault in Obamacare as well. He sees that the premiums are skyrocketing, deductibles are unpayable, and that the system is collapsing on itself, which was the intention. And the architect of this bill, Obamacare, not the new Republican one, said in an interview, it was either an interview or conference that he was at, you know, all these people are saying this is a cloak and disguise for a single-payer healthcare system that we want to get to. Well, it's not. It's right in there. It actually says we want to get to that type of system. So this isn't something that was hidden. Again, this is how progressive policies work. You put in for something, hoping that it collapses so that you can say, I told you it didn't work, and we want to go for the more extreme case of what we're talking about. So even they acknowledge right now that Obamacare isn't working. It's not working for anyone, and both sides see that. But now that that this Republican care hasn't passed, there's a huge possibility that if this isn't addressed, that Obamacare continues its rapid collapse, and American families feel the pain and blame the Democrat Party. See, so what I'm saying there is the Democrats wanted the Republican bill to pass. And the reason why I say that is because if it had passed, they were sure that it would collapse under the system, that there would be outrage from the American citizens, and that there would be a revolution, at least in regards to voting, that the country would get so pissed off that they did away with Obamacare that there would at least be a revolution in the voting booths. Now, I believe that they feel it would probably be more than that, especially with the way we've seen activism lately with the Black Lives Matter crowd producing violence and just this hysterics of post-election protests and everything. So I think that they thought it would be more than that, but it didn't pass. So the fact that they were certain that this would pass and that they would be off the hook for the original bill's failure is now coming back to bite them in the rear, and they have to face the very real possibility that despite Trump's roadblocks that he keeps on running into, the rising premium and deductibles under Obamacare could cement an anti-Democrat vote in the upcoming elections. Isn't it funny how the left is up in arms over President Trump's actions that seem to reflect more of a leftist agenda anyway? Of course, if you were to look at classic Democratic heroes like John F. Kennedy, you would find that they have little in common with the Democratic liberal progressives of today and are more in line with today's moderate Republicans. Take a look at that. John F. Kennedy was actually pro-life from what I remember. Like I said, I'm not all about identifying problems, but at least offering solutions as much as possible. Sometimes I forget this in the podcast and must move on as quickly as possible, because when I have guest co-hosts, it opens up a conversation and that can get out of hand, and we just basically forget to offer up solutions. But the solution to the healthcare problem, is to completely repeal Obamacare with a phase out of features through December, not over a span of time. One of the things in the current Republican bill is phasing out of certain things of Obamacare over the next 4 years or so. Well, there's a problem with that. We have midterm elections coming up within the next 2 years, and that could put a kibosh to anything that we have going on with this. It would actually, if things aren't moving along fast enough, you could throw people on the fence off to the Democratic side to say, well, these guys aren't getting anything done. We gave them the House, the Senate, the presidency, and the Supreme Court coming up, and they're still not getting anything done. And by the way, I forgot to mention that with that same idea, Obama and the Democrats had control over everything for 2 solid years at one point in time in his presidency, and they took advantage of it. They actually went full steam ahead with liberal progressive agenda, and that led to the Tea Party outrage and revolution in the voting booths at that point in time. But with us trying to phase out these types of features over the next 4 years, the problem with that is that these midterm elections could stall or completely shut off those phase outs. So we need to make it within the next 2 years. Probably the best result would actually be over the next year and through December, or even a year off from when you actually put something into place. But at least set a time frame. That's one of the most important things, and it has to be a short-term time frame. We have to allow cross-state competition for insurance companies and allow the free market to work and drive down insurance costs through competition. It's a simple theory right there. We are only allowed to buy insurance, healthcare insurance, from healthcare providers within our state. So here in Pennsylvania, I am only allowed to get health insurance through Pennsylvania insurance companies. So it's Pennsylvania insurance companies that are competing with each other. But there's obviously the big healthcare insurance providers that are going to show up in every state, if not almost every state. Okay. So if you open up the borders for the states for cross-state competition, essentially what's going to happen is that they're just going to identify themselves as one. So United Healthcare isn't United Healthcare Pennsylvania and United Healthcare New Jersey. It just becomes United Healthcare. So that's a big one. And they would have the ability with the pool of participants in that to drastically lower the prices of entry into the insurance pool because they have so many people in their membership, right? But there could be an insurance company in another state, which is what we'll get to, is a group of people that have decided that they have large enough participation in that pool of people to actually get health care for that pool of people then. And so if they're able to compete, there may be a way for them to work the figures to actually come out less than the big insurance providers. Now, opening up competition could certainly squash out little insurance companies like that through competition. But that is the way that the free market works. There's some problems with that. I mean, you're talking about a Walmart situation squashing out mom-pa type realtors in local townships and everything. But when you open up the borders, it allows for competition to drive down costs. That's the law of supply and demand at work. When you add more to the supply and the demand has to move in the other direction, the cost associated with that is going to decrease. So let's see, what's the next solution? Work with both parties for a solution to pre-existing conditions. Look, I don't think I've heard on either side this idea that the acknowledgement of pre-existing conditions and addressing those in the healthcare insurance world is a bad idea, that we should just let people fly and be denied coverage if they have pre-existing conditions. Both sides want to address that, it seems, and that has been talked about. Ted Cruz in that debate said that the Republicans have a plan for pre-existing conditions. But look, you're talking to a guy right now who had cancer, okay? So understandably, I'm going to tell you, if I go to get insurance and they say that I have to pay more because I had a pre-existing condition and I'm a risk, that's exactly what this is. I'm not gonna be mad at them for recognizing a situation where, I beat cancer, but it could come back in the next 2 years and the lights go out. It's a matter of risk, and this is what the insurance companies do. It's a game of risk for them. We are as an insurance company, taking a risk that out of all these people that are applying for healthcare and paying their premiums, only this percentage of people are going to be affected by something so drastic that we're going to have to put out a huge payout. And what happens is, if something catastrophic does happen, then they have to increase the cost of insurance. I mean, that's why that kind of stuff happens. So I acknowledge that. I wouldn't be pissed off. And if we had open border competition, if they said, if I was cornered here in Pennsylvania and I was told by Pennsylvania insurance companies that I was not allowed to have insurance without paying this high premium because of pre-existing conditions, if it allowed me to go into Ohio and Texas and New York for different options, it would allow this open competition for me to actually get the best price of coverage. And I wouldn't fall into this trap of, having to pay companies that have a monopoly in the current system over me to squeeze the money out of me, So it's very important. We need to institute health savings accounts. So right now, we need to have health savings accounts because it leads into one of my next things. It's actually 2 down, about the portability of health insurance. We should be able to take health insurance wherever we want with us, despite employer situations. If I leave one employer and go to another one, if I like my healthcare plan, I shouldn't be tied. My healthcare plan shouldn't be tied to that healthcare. To that employer purely because I got it there. They might be able to get me into a pool, but as long as I continue to pay, I should be able to keep that. And as a matter of fact, the more people that do that, if there's a high turnover rate, that the larger the pool gets, the lower the insurance cost to that company is actually going to be in the long run anyway. We need tort reform to control frivolous lawsuit claims that drive up costs. Now, I've gone over a lot of these details with you guys, and it's worth mentioning over and over again, because what happens with tort reform is we have a society that's, lawsuit ready at any given moment. And people sue for the smallest things. Now, some things are big and some things deserve payouts, certainly. But if a doctor's doing everything that they can to help you, and, in the course of a 25-hour, 30-hour surgery, he neglects to see, putting you back together after a car accident and you're in critical condition. He misses that there's a small bone fracture in somewhere, and it ends up allowing you not to bend your pinky completely or something. But he saves your life, for crying out loud. I mean, that's what people are suing millions for. And when you sue for stuff like that, that drives up the insurance costs because they know that they have to cover frivolous lawsuits like that on behalf of the hospitals and doctors. So that is one of the reasons why healthcare costs so much. So if I go in, for instance, okay, I tell you, I had cancer, okay, I had lymphoma. And what happened was I had some enlarged lymph nodes in my armpit, my left armpit, and it was brought to my attention when the first test that was done was an ultrasound, and they could see that those were 6 times the size of the regular size of what lymph nodes should be. Well, at this point, they said I needed to go to the emergency room and get some additional tests done. Now, by this point, I had actually been misdiagnosed for over 2 months at my local doctor out here in the country, but that's a different story. But what happened is, when I actually went for the test, I got x-rays, I got blood tests, I got ultrasounds, I got CAT scans, I got PET scans, I had just any and every test under the sun. The reason why they do that is because if they miss anything at all, anything else, then they have this feeling, or right or wrong, that they're going to be sued for what's going on with that. Let's see here. Just want to open this up. So it's interesting in that aspect. That's all I was saying. So they have to watch out for those types of lawsuits, and the only way to control that is by controlling the costs and controlling those frivolous lawsuits, and that's what goes into tort reform. We have to allow the portability of plans to take with you from employer to employer. I just went over that. That's very important, because when you lose a healthcare plan because you're switching employers, whether you got fired or whether you quit, you could have a phenomenal healthcare plan. And if you have the availability of taking that with you, it's just going to make things so much better. And in this case here, so maybe one of the benefits of working for a certain employer is that they pay for a large percentage of your healthcare plan, and you pay very minimal things. If you at least have the option to take over and make that portable with you, and you end up paying what the employer was paying, then at least you get to keep your plan, and it's a great plan that you get to take along with you. The biggest problems that people run into is the switching of plans. Now, I'll be honest with you. We were going through a rough period as a family a couple years ago between employers, and we had to enter into the system, Obamacare system, the exchange. And it was more of a nightmare than I thought it would be. I'll just put it to you that way. The insurance companies, and my wife would have a more concrete statistic on what actually happened, because she was the one that spent work hour length times on the phone with the insurance companies to try and get things resolved. But we were bounced around between, I believe, 6 or more health insurance providers. Because the old saying by President Obama that if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, just did not happen to stick. And it turned out to be one of the biggest lies in political history. What actually happened was we were bounced around because our insurance plans kept on getting canceled, because they either had to drive up costs, they didn't have enough participants, they had to move things around and do different things, whatever the heck the reasons were. It doesn't really matter. We lost our plans. And every time we lost our plans and were placed onto something new, we had to find out if our doctor, one of which was my doctor that knew my medical history and was treating me for my cancer, we had to see if he was covered. And, you know, in-network, out-of-network type stuff, sometimes we had to be forced to go to see other doctors in some of those. And I think what we had to do was, I forget, out-of-network you had to pay more or something like that. So, that's a nightmare. First of all, you're not just losing and going on to a different insurance plan. You have to take the time to refill out those forms and enter into the exchange again, and you're canceling things, and it becomes a job in and of itself. And I'm not the only one that has this experience. So many people, I'm sure if you talk to people yourself, you'll find that very many of your close friends have similar type of experiences. Now, what pissed me off is the fact that for 3 straight months, my kids, my 3 daughters, were bounced around back and forth with absolutely no insurance. I shouldn't even say bounced around, because the responsibility itself was bounced around between insurers, between CHIP, the state-funded or is CHIP federal? It doesn't really matter. Between federal children's healthcare provider and the state level one. And every time we would get in touch with the state level, they would say, oh, no, based on these specifications, you would fall under the federal. And every time we talked to the federal, they would say, no, it's the state. And even when we said, no, you guys are saying this, they're saying that, and you're bouncing us back and forth, our kids do not have health insurance right now, they would squirm around and still blame it on the other one. I went for 3 months with my kids not having health insurance because of bureaucrats, essentially, playing games with who provides insurance. So is it really a stretch when the Republicans were warning us of death panels? And death panels is this elaborate type, the word basically that makes this elaborate environment in your head that people are sitting there, with a judge's hammer saying, no, you die, and you live. But in actuality, what happens is they make decisions based on statistics. This person is young, too young. They fall under the age of 16. They haven't been alive long enough to really understand life, and so they're not really worth keeping around as it is. So, let's take their organs and give them to someone within the 16 or 18 to 45-year-old range where they're prime. They've been alive long enough that they are experiencing life and have more to do and are probably contributing to society more. Or you're looking at the other end of the spectrum where you have someone that's retired, has a couple years left on their life, and, well, they're about to die anyway, so let's just let them pass. Let's take their organs, give them to someone in the middle again. That's what death panels are. That's how bureaucrats and doctors work under that type of system. So I'm sitting here with 3 kids that are being bounced back and forth between federal and state health insurance, with each of them trying to place a responsibility on the other. While every day passes, my wife spends hours upon hours on the phone with the insurance companies trying to get this resolved. And in the meantime, going out, getting groceries, everything else while I'm working, taking a risk that every time she gets into the car, heck, just every waking moment with kids, especially, falling down the stairs, what have you, that something could happen. So it's ridiculous. And what were we talking about here? The portability. So the ability to take that along with you makes sense to me. We need to allow individuals to form their own pools of people beyond employers to get insurance plans for the group. So let me tell you about this. I technically don't have insurance right now. We actually belong to a group of, it's Christian-based, and it's a bunch of people that pay an amount of money every month, and what happens is you send the checks directly to people that are in need of healthcare at that point in time. So this group of people is in charge of finding out who needs it and where the money should go, and they assign you to those people, and you're supposed to also write an encouraging note or letter to who you're sending it to, and send prayers along with that, and it's Christian-based. So it's kind of cool. But in that kind of system, we basically go into the doctors and say we're on a cash-based system, and there's an ability there, believe it or not. It's interesting to find this out. If you don't have insurance, if you tell them that you don't have insurance, they will typically work with you on coming up with a more affordable price. Now, the reason why it's not affordable when you're under insurance is that they can suck that money out of the insurance companies, and it makes sense for them. So, excuse me. Let's see. So, yeah, in this case, forming your own group. So let's just say the Christian group that we belong to is a good example of that, actually. But let's just say that you have a biker gang. Okay, you have a group of guys or girls. I don't want to assume which is which, but you have a bunch of people that get together in the middle of the state every Sunday or Saturday to ride around the countryside on their motorcycles. And this group has thousands of members, and typically at least 1,000 people will show up for this, right? Well, that group is starting to be large enough where you can actually pull together and say, hey, let's start an insurance policy for our group of people. And now these are under these terms and conditions of what we would want to happen in this environment. And now we have so many people that want to get involved in this. What we can do is actually make this insurance pool together. And anyone that wants to join in the future can, and our health insurance will be provided through our little group of people here, as opposed to going through our employers, because that is always a situation that is fleeting. It can come and go as it pleases, or depending on circumstances. So that's one way of doing that. We need to also work to reform the FDA regulations on foreign medications and treatments to allow insurance to cover things, including experimental procedures if they are out of options. So there's there's a lot. And Bernie, here's the interesting thing. Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz agree on multiple things in regards to healthcare. One of those things is the fact that there is an ability for us to actually or an inability at this point for us to actually go across seas and get medications that Europe or other places are using right now to treat things like cancer that are working just because the FDA hasn't passed them or cleared them for use here in the United States because of bureaucracy again. Well, I think we need to cut some red tape there. I think that especially in regards to people that are terminal, because of what's available to us here, we should have the ability to say, here's something that's experimental that they're trying in Mexico right now. I am not going to live, but I want to live, and I think I should have the ability to go and try to, with this treatment and use that treatment and see if it actually works for me. Because as of right now, I'm a dead man walking here in the United States. We should have the ability to do that. And there's phenomenal things that are happening out there. There's phenomenal treatments that are going on in the testing phase right now here in America. I mean, when I was sick, which was back in 2009 to 2010 is when it started, we were looking at the Kansas Institute, and they were coming up with, at that point in time, technology of microbots going into the bloodstream and placing gold foil wraps around cancer cells. And then instead of going through chemotherapy, what they would do is they would put you under a heat lamp that would heat up just enough to melt that gold foil and heat it up so that it would melt the cancer cells inside of it. These nanobots would actually, or micro nanobots, whatever they are, were actually designed to seek out cancer cells and do that. Now, if you've had cancer and you know what chemotherapy is like, you know it's barbaric. You know that it's pumping poison into your system, and it's one of the most horrific things that people can go through. For me, and everybody's different. Whenever I find people that have gone through chemotherapy, I always ask them, what was it like for you? Because once they get done with their story, I tell them that if you follow your sinuses, if you ever get a sinus infection, your sinuses always feel like when they're acting up, like you're wearing a pair of glasses that go behind your ears, around your eyes, and across your nose and everything. My chemotherapy treatments felt like Tabasco sauce was being pumped through my sinuses. And it was the worst experience, and it was every 3 weeks. And the first week, I literally buried my head in between the back cushion and seat cushion of the couch to put force on my temples to alleviate the massive migraine and Tabasco type feelings I was enduring at the time. And bear in mind that every treatment is exponentially builds up on the previous ones and gets worse and worse and worse. And to the point where the second last treatment after I had it, I said I didn't want to do the last one. Seeing the finish line right in front of me, I stood there saying, I don't want to cross that finish line. Just stop. Just bring the finish line to me, for crying out loud. I don't want it anymore. But, it would be a week of on the couch, a half a week after that of starting to clear up but still hurting, clearing up for the second half of that second week, and then the third week being pretty darn good and having a great time, and then back into the meat grinder again in the third week, or I'm sorry, in the following week after the third week to going into chemo again. It is, I'm sure of two things right now, that in the future we're going to see chemotherapy and radiation as barbaric treatment of diseases like cancer. And I'm also sure, not completely dealing with this at all, but I'm sure that we're going to view abortion as heinous as slavery in the future as well. Just something that people can't believe we actually went through with that kind of stuff, that we couldn't recognize life for what it is. So those are two things I feel are going to change mentalities in the future. Let's see here. I said that there are ways of attacking healthcare, but we need to make these ideas a foundation before we even consider entering into a negotiation process. And what I mean by that is exactly what I said at the beginning of this, which is we can't expect in a negotiation process that things are going to get better than what we want when we're dealing with a negotiation process with an opposing viewpoint that doesn't want that stuff at all. Things are always going to be compromised with each other and devalued, I guess is a word that you can say, in regards to what you want. And the same thing goes with the Democrats. So I'm not devaluing their input in this at all. As a matter of fact, I am an advocate of having at least two sides to every situation. When I was on the school board, I valued having liberals that brought a different perspective to it, even as they were trying to stab me in the back for just having a conservative viewpoint. Because you learn something. As long as I'm bringing this up, I want to bring up a video too of how to. We just watched it last night, actually, of one of the Phelps granddaughters, one of the women that used to go to the Westboro Baptist Church. She did a TED Talk and talks about how to address people with opposing viewpoints. And it's about asking honest questions and listening to people and everything else. And that's really what I'm talking about here is, we shout each other down so much and have become so divisive while touting tolerance, that it's a hypocritical stance for a lot of us to take if you're constantly saying tolerance, love, not hate, and everything else, but then you walk out and say screw the other side of the equation, and how dare they're a bunch of Nazis and homophobes and racists in some cases, or both sides call each other Nazis. But it's once you sit down and actually start to listen to the other side, we may not agree here in regards to the healthcare. Okay, let's just put it this way: I think we can all agree that there's issues there. I think that we can. I'll even say that 80%, if not higher than that, of those issues are things that we can agree that those are issues. The difference between these parties, and I would put an asterisk next to that, saying that the true parties, not these, not the extreme ends or the people that are in Congress or anything just to have a career, make a career of it so that they don't have to do any real jobs for the rest of their life and get a pension. I think that we can agree on the problems, but the solutions are where we differ. Okay? And if we have the ability to sit and at least listen to why the other side is proposing a certain solution without jumping to the conclusion that they have ill intent for whatever the solution may be. Now, in this case, we're talking about Congress. So let's not assume that the Democrats have ill intent for the citizens. If you're a liberal, don't look at a health care plan by conservatives and say, oh, like that commercial that they put together where a Republican congressman took a wheelchair granny and pushed her off the cliff. I mean, that kind of extremist, I almost said a curse word there, BS, is exactly why we are so divided in this country as it is. We can't have intelligent conversations and debate if the first thing to do is jump down each other's throats and assume ill intent and maliciously attack each other. That's all there is to it. If we open our minds and at least hear the solutions, find out why they came to that conclusion and solution, there's an ability there. Okay, once we both lay out the exact same problem, we come at it from different angles of solutions, we can look at where the commonalities are within our solutions, debate each other on what we don't agree with each other on, try to resolve those and come up with something, and we work together from there. But that's not the way things are. And this healthcare bill that the Republicans put forth is a prime example of that. This should have been, it's not a Democrat's dream bill to put forward, but they shouldn't have been as angry as they were, because it essentially was a Democrat bill for healthcare, which is why it pisses me off as a conservative. It wasn't conservative at all. So those are just some of those things too. So while we're out of here, we're coming up on the end of everything that's going on. In the beginning, if you were just tuning in and missed some of the podcasts, we actually went over getting into different types of topics besides politics. The politics will actually always be the bulk of what I talk about on the Generation Y Conservative, because it's what I'm most passionate about. We started off the program, though, by talking about some of the entertainment news. There's a couple new trailers out this week that you should definitely check out, or not check out in one case. But the one was the new trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming. That was pretty cool. Lots of new things are showing up in there, kind of alluding to new details on the plot line for that. Michael Keaton, man, he is, where has he been? He was in that Hawkman movie. I haven't seen that yet, but just a phenomenal actor that I grew up with. He was the first Batman for me. No, I should say movie Batman, because Adam West was Batman in the original Batman series, which was fantastic. I grew up on Nick at Night with that and I Love Lucy and stuff like that. But you had Michael Keaton was Batman, the first Batman. He was Beetlejuice, which was a phenomenal movie as well, something that makes memories. And these types of things, you go back and watch and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how far we've come with special effects. I actually heard that they're making a Beetlejuice sequel at some point in time. Could you imagine with the technology that we have with CGI now, the types of stuff that they could do? If Winona Ryder would return for that would be phenomenal. And think about this too. The original couple in that, I forget her name. You guys can knock that out in the comments, who the couple was that died in that house. But the husband was Alec Baldwin at the time. So that's pretty funny too. We also had a trailer for It, the remake of the 1992 or 97 made-for-TV movie that ran about 3.5 hours long at that time, and with Pennywise the Clown as the villain. Now, speaking off of the novel itself, apparently Pennywise the Clown wasn't really the monster of the book. It was the iteration that this shapeshifter monster took to lure kids into the situations, because it literally fed off their fear and them eventually as well. So the clown was the most prominent shapeshift that it took, because it was like a fishing lure for kids, because they would assume innocence until they got close and got into it. Here's what I want to say about that original movie. What a fantastic horror movie that shaped horror movies after that, and shaped just my nightmares alone. My only complaint about that whole thing, and I don't know, I haven't read the book. I actually kind of want to read the book, because a lot of people are reading the book again now because of this, or knowing that it was coming out. Apparently, I don't know if I'm not going to get into the details, because if you haven't seen it and they actually remake it with all the stuff again, that would be pretty cool, except for the ending. The ending is what gets me. The monster, what it ends up being in the end, when they kill it, or supposedly kill it, apparently it shows up in other Stephen King novels as different things, and movies apparently too, is that monster, that end monster, ruined a good portion of the movie for me on what it actually ended up being. And I just thought, and maybe that's looking back on the movie magic now, seeing as it was probably like either stop motion with how they worked it or whatever. But even so, it's just, that kind of ruined it for me. We also had the trailer for Al Gore's new movie, An Inconvenient Sequel, Power to Truth, which is ridiculous. Coming out the beginning of next week, I'm actually going to have a review for Beauty and the Beast that just came out. So that should be interesting. We're going to see that tomorrow, and I should have the editing process of that rolling by tomorrow night, as well as this podcast up on at least audio and ready to go for KLRN on Sunday at 3 p.m. Other movies are coming out soon. The new Fast and the Furious movie, I'm definitely going to go see that, so if anybody wants to tag along and review that. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is already getting reviews that if they could rate it higher than a 10 out of 10, the people that have already seen it are saying that it deserves that kind of score, that it's the perfect movie. I thought that the original Guardians of the Galaxy movie set standards for where Marvel's needed to move, because it was that good. Chris Pratt and the whole cast did phenomenal, and they all did their parts in it, right? But this new one looks like they all bring the humor that Chris Pratt did as Star-Lord into the fold, with Drax in the trailers doing hilarious things and saying hilarious things, as well as Rocket the Raccoon and Groot being funny. There were even some scenes in regards to the new character Mantis, who's going to look like she does pretty funny stuff as well. Let's see, what else is coming out soon? Either way, I have a bunch of reviews coming up. I said early in the broadcast that if you're interested, I will be putting up a list of movies that on the Facebook page that I plan on going to see. And if you're interested in any of those, you can let me know that you're interested in coming out. If you're in Eastern PA or anything, or even Western New Jersey, to go see those and get involved in the review process, because that would be fun. Also, we talked a little bit about some technology stuff tonight, too. We were talking about Elon Musk's article, which you can find on my Facebook page, written in Vanity Fair, about how Elon Musk, and I didn't mention this, he has invested $1 billion of his own money into research and combating this progression of artificial intelligence. He believes that strongly, that artificial intelligence is going to have such a lasting impact on destroying humanity as we know it, that he has invested $1 billion of his own dollars into trying to stop it, while working with like minds of intelligence levels like Bill Gates and Stephen Hawking and some other people as well. So that's pretty crazy. But you know, we hit some political topics. It's always fun getting into, well, not fun, it's actually depressing, but getting into what's going on in education. We had that one 5-year-old girl suspended because she had a stick that resembled a gun, but it was clearly a stick. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'll actually show you a picture of it. No mistaking this thing as a gun. It's just ridiculous. And we talked about Trump being not so conservative, and my friends attacking their own party people for actually holding our own party accountable. Go figure. But listen, I appreciate you guys tuning in, watching either the videos or listening to the podcast or what have you. It's always fun talking about this stuff. I have a blast. I enjoy people getting involved and doing comments and everything. But that's it for tonight. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. Again, if you want to follow me on social media, you can find me on Facebook. Just search for the Generation Y Conservative. You can also find me on YouTube with the Generation Y Conservative. We have a lot of great videos on there. I've been taking segments out that are particular to certain topics that. Actually, that Tommy Lahren one, I pulled out the segment on that last week, and that's been getting a lot of views on why I think she was suspended, even as we are talking now, and news still hasn't come out from either party involved in that on why exactly she was suspended. But there is word that there is a legal battle between her and the Blaze over who actually has ownership of the followers of her Facebook page, because the Blaze owns the Facebook page, but they are her followers. I would actually side with the Blaze on that one. If it's their page and they set it up for her and everything and they retained ownership, she needs to find a way to get people over to her Twitter to lead them into a new page. Either way, that's news for another day that we can get into, especially when details actually emerge on why she was suspended. I don't think it was her comments. I think that it was her attitude behind the scenes, and I think that it's unfortunate because she could be a fantastic voice for conservatives if she just put a little bit more effort into doing some research and taking a concrete foundation of conservative principles into what she's actually talking about. You can find me on Twitter at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end. You can also find the audio podcast of this, as well as other ones, previous ones before this, on Google Play and Stitcher. You can also find me now on Sundays at 3 p.m. On KLRNRadio. And they also put me onto their iTunes account as well, so you can actually find me on iTunes as well. This is great because I get it. You don't have time to be watching the videos and everything, whether it's Facebook Live on Friday nights at 9 p.m. or when it's broadcast on YouTube. Although I will say if I'm talking specifically, for instance, like tonight, in regards to the It trailer and Spider-Man trailer, I will throw those up into my YouTube video so that you can click on them and lead to them. So that's always nice, and I always throw pictures and other media up in there as well. In regards to the stories that I'm talking about. So the YouTube account is nice to check out. But I understand everybody has to work, and if you're driving or if you're cooking or doing anything, mowing the lawn or anything else, that you have the ability to throw on a set of headphones and you want to listen to the podcast, you can always find me on that Google Play, Stitcher, or iTunes, and KLRN, like I said, as well. So all I ask is that we work together as conservatives to spread the conservative message. So don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share all of those social media pages to help spread the conservative message and grow this audience. It would definitely be greatly appreciated. So, see you for next week's podcast, and in the meantime, have a great night, and God bless America.